Your daily fix of women's mixed martial arts from the UFC, Invicta FC, Bellator, and one championship. Be in the loop, cause Golden State Media Concepts got you covered. Get your fix of women's MMA with Got You Covered on Golden State Media Concepts Women's MMA Podcast.
Thank you for tuning into the GSMC Women's MMA Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. I am your host, Arnel de Leon, and hopefully you are doing well for yourself. You, your friends, your family, whether you live in the States or internationally, I hope you are doing well for yourself during a time of major uncertainty. Stay safe, wash your hands, don't destroy other people's properties, seriously. And, businesses are closing, they're reclosing, things are getting a little bit shaky, but at the same time, things are also being kind of stable, especially in the world of sports. Basketball seems fine in the clear. NHL seems like they're fine in the clear right now. We can't expect audience members coming back in till potentially early to mid 2021. That's the sad reality of things. That's not me making an educated guess. It's coming in from Adam Silver, the commissioner for the NBA, and also Dana White himself saying, yeah, don't expect fans, don't expect people actually being there till 2021. That's a sad reality, but you know what? We're gonna get our sports still. We're still seeing these athletes going out there, putting their lives on the line, performing at the very best of their ability in order to entertain us and for them to make some money. So there was no women's fights in the main card for the UFC 252 event, but there was one standout performance here, and that was Felice Herrig against Virna Jandiroba that happened as the co-main event for the prelim card. Virna Jandiroba, before this fight happened, when it was announced to be Virna Jandiroba against Felice Herrig, I thought to myself, this is gonna be an impressive performance by Jandiroba. Every single time I see Jandiroba come into my screen, I'm like, this woman is gonna pull out one of the best performances of the entire night. And this night, she did it on a veteran in Felice Herrig. So, coming to the fight, I knew, okay, Jandiroba, she's my pick to win this. I think she's gonna have a really stellar performance, and she did. She won the fight, won via armbar submission, first round, 1 minute and 44 seconds in, submission armbar victory for Virna Jandiroba, winning the fight. She is now 16-1 in her overall mixed martial arts career. I feel happy for Virna Jandiroba there. She had a really good, strong performance there. So, how the fight laid out here? Let me just give you the fight stats. So, Felice Herrig landed 100% of her total strikes. All three of them. She landed 100% of her significant strikes. All one of them. Now then, Virna Jandiroba, she goes in there. Total strikes, 12 of 15. Significant strikes, 4 of 5. Virna Jandiroba only needed one takedown. These two women were going at it. Takedown immediately. Goes in for an armbar submission. By the way, Virna Jandiroba's grappling game, so pretty to look at. She was able to go through her transitions so smoothly, so cleanly, so quick, that every time I see a fighter going for a wrestling takedown, they slowly have to make their way in from full guard to half guard to side control into full mount. No, Virna Jandiroba, takedown, full guard, goes into side guard, then goes immediately into full mount within the span of just 13 seconds. Beautiful. Absolute stellar to watch there. So, Virna Jandiroba, she does end up getting a performance of the night bonus. Good for her. I'm trying to figure out what exact number. It probably is around $50,000, how she normally gets it. But, so Virna Jandiroba does end up getting a submission of the night bonus, a performance of the night bonus. So, which nabs her a couple, quick money there. Good for her. Good. But Virna is coming from MMA Junkie. Virna Jandiroba has a unique reason why she wanted a quick win over Felice Herrig. And so for Virna Jandiroba, she beat Felice Herrig at UFC 252 in Las Vegas. Jandiroba on the fight's key moments. She goes and say, as everybody knows, I'm a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu specialist. As I said in my interviews, I had a plan A or a plan B. Plan A worked. Jandiroba on trying to have a quick finish. I didn't mention to anybody about this before, but during camp, I had a little bit of problem. I lost my front teeth, and I didn't want to lose them again. so I try to make it as quick as possible. Jandiroba on what she wants next. Felice was ranked, so hopefully come next week, I'm ranked. I think this maybe made a testament, and this made me make a statement in the division. Hopefully the UFC is going to look with some more caring eyes to me and give me a top 10 opponent. Just someone ranked. Top 5, who knows? Whatever they want to give me, I'll be happy with it. But if I could keep on climbing the rankings, that would be great. As far as name goes, I'm just really focused on getting onto the rankings. So whoever is available, I am more than happy to take them on. As far as the time frame, I could fight tomorrow. Honestly, I didn't take that much damage. Maybe next week. I think I have a mandatory suspension or something. As soon as that's done, I'm ready to fight. The suspensions have not been put out there. We don't know what her suspension could be. But right now, she looks perfectly fine. She seems perfectly fine. If Hannah freaking Cyphers is able to somehow go out there and compete 3 times despite getting knocked out twice, I'm pretty sure Jandiroba can do so. So let me look at it's in the women's strawweight rankings right now, which has to be the deepest division in all the UFC right now. Where does Jandiroba place herself in? Because there's a lot of prospects in the strawweight rankings. Definitely a lot in the flyweight rankings here. So I'm right now looking at the strawweight rankings here. I'm trying to find Jandiroba here. Yeah, looking up here, we have. She could fight against Carolina Kowalkiewicz. I think that's the best matchup so far. Because we have Amanda Ribas, who's out there. I don't think she would want to fight against somebody like Jandiroba. We have Randa Marcos. She'll be fighting against Mackenzie Dern coming up on... Oh, it'll be coming up in the UFC 253 show. So Mackenzie Dern against Randa Marcos in the UFC 253 show. We have Angela Hill against Michelle Watterson. Alexa Grasso against Jeon Kim. Ticia Torres doesn't have a matchup here. Morena Rodriguez, she's coming off a loss against Carla Esparza. But Morena Rodriguez, she had a really good showing against Carla Esparza. The strawweight rankings, it's like 1 through 5, and then 6 through 10, or 6 through 15 is anyone's game. But the 6 through 15 is comprised of a lot of really good fighters. The 6 through 15 spot, 6 through 15 for the UFC Women's Strawweight Rankings is very deep, comprised of a lot of good fighters coming off, like win streaks. We got a lot of fighters here coming off losses with impressive, although they lost, really impressive still. Like Morena Rodriguez and Alexa Grasso. They both had very good fights against Carla Esparza. They both lost, but still good showings there. I think right now for Virna Jandiroba, a good matchup for her would be Carolina Kowalkiewicz. I think that works perfectly well for her, just because Carolina doesn't have the grappling ability to go match Virna Jandiroba. And also Carolina's striking has been pretty much on a downturn for a couple of years now. She's coming off a 3-fight losing streak right now. So in terms, and Jandiroba and Carolina Kowalkiewicz, she's ranked number 15 right now. So Jandiroba, she fights Carolina, and then she can go, because I understand her viewpoint in that she wants to fight somebody in the top 10. But right now, there's so many spots right now that are up in the air from 6 through 10 that it's hard to just place Jandiroba up in the front then. The only way Jandiroba can really be placed as a front runner to be fighting within the 6 or 10 spot is if so many things are going her way and her opponents are willing to go fight somebody as low ranked as Jandiroba. Jandiroba is a low ranked fighter who is good enough to fight against Claudia Cadella, who is good enough to fight against Ina Ansaroff, who is good enough to fight against Morena Rodriguez. 6 through 15 is so deep that any woman can defeat each other. There's not that much of a huge difference or differential between how good of a fighter is who's ranked number 6 or who's ranked number 13 or 12. It's that deep. It really is. If I was Jandiroba, I would say, okay, things are getting really heavy right now in the top 10. I'll go for Carolina Kowalkiewicz. And from then on, I'm guaranteed to fight somebody in the top 10. And it could be against Yan Chunyan or Claudia Cadella. I could see that. I could see Claudia Cadella if she were to... Yeah, so Cadella and Yan Chunyan are fighting on my birthday also. So yeah, look at that. They're fighting against each other. And whoever loses that fight will still be within the top 10. Then they get to fight either Morena Rodriguez or Alexa Grasso or Michelle Watterson. Man, that's the problem right now. There are so many names out there, and there's so many prospects. And the fighters who are losing right now are still really good fighters. Like Michelle Watterson, she should have defeated Carla Esparza, and now she could be fighting against Angela Hill, and that fight is a complete toss-up in the air. Ji Yoon Kim is a really stellar fighter. The problem with Ji Yoon Kim, though, is that, she just can't make weights. So what's next here for Jandiroba? I honestly don't know. She has a long way to go until she reaches the top 5 right now, and it's mostly a case of the division is so stacked that you have to pretty much wait in line. That's a sad reality of things here. But I'm looking at I'm right now looking at the women's strawweight rankings right now. Among the top 6, none of them are matched up anytime soon. And it's because there's a lot of, there's a lot of international, so Jessica Andrade, I think Jessica Andrade was meant to fight somebody else. Who is Jessica Andrade supposed to fight next? Because it's gonna be Rose Namajunas against Weili Zhang. That's the next major UFC women's fight happening here. But I guess Jessica Andrade, there were rumors out there that she's going to be fighting somebody much lower in the rankings than her. But that's not really the case. And Jessica Andrade, she's going to stay there. Tatiana Suarez and Nina Ansaroff, both of them have been unavailable for a while. I'm surprised they're still ranked as 5 and 6 because both of them have been pretty much not available for a year or two. And Claudia Gadelha and Carla Esparza, that could be the next potential matchup. And I could see them getting their way just barely in the top 5 if Gadelha were to win her fight. Yeah. Women's strawweight division, very deep, very stacked. And that's why I'm really excited about it. I really am. Weili Zhang and Rose Namajunas, that fight is a fight of the year contender waiting to happen. Only problem right now, though, is, COVID, traveling issues being a real thing. Rose Namajunas is developing the second win in her career right now where she feels super confident about herself. She didn't look good in that third round against Jessica Andrade, but she looked really awesome in the first and second round. And when you hear Rose Namajunas talk about herself and her training now, she has a lot of confidence built in for herself that I'm happy to see Rose being like, yeah, man, I'm ready to go fight Weili Zhang, totally. Considering that Rose Namajunas was going to fight Weili Zhang a couple months ago. So we also have, you know what? Book it. Joanna Jędrzejczyk, Jessica Andrade. That's a fun matchup to see. Whoever wins that fight is going to fight either Weili Zhang or Rose Namajunas. I know Joanna Jędrzejczyk, she herself has said that she only wants a title fight next. And it's understandable as to why Joanna Jędrzejczyk would say she only wants a title fight, similar to Daniel Cormier, in that Joanna and Daniel Cormier are both all-time greats in their respective divisions. They're both guaranteed to be future Hall of Famers. So it's and just like Dominic Cruz, they'll be like, well, look at my accolades, I automatically get a title fight. I honestly don't like that. I just really don't. I don't like fighters who use their accolades to prove as to why they should be buying themselves into a title fight. John Jones is going to do that, light heavyweight champion. We're not going to see him go through JDS or Alistair Overeem or Augusto Sakai. He's going to go fight immediately the champion. And for Joanna Jędrzejczyk, she probably will play hardball with the UFC. She'll be like, you know what? Longest reigning women's strawweight champion of all time. I am the GOAT of the women's strawweight division. I've held that belt longer than anyone else. I've defended the belt more than anyone else. I've competed more than anyone else in the strawweight division. So I automatically should be getting a title fight all the time. I wouldn't like that because of how deep the division is. It's only fair for Joanna to at least get one good win before she fights against Rose or Weili Zhang. And also, considering how impressive Jessica Andrade was in her performance against Rose Namajunas, yeah, Joanna versus Andrade, great matchup. I'm saying Joanna Jędrzejczyk is going to win that matchup just because the size difference here is that if there was an atomweight division, if there was a UFC women's atomweight division, Jessica Andrade and Michelle Watterson would tear everyone up. Without a doubt, they are that good, and they fight one division bigger than they actually should be fighting. And so, if Jessica Andrade, man, there should be an atomweight division. I still know the UFC featherweight women's division is completely up in the air right now, and that Dana White himself has said that he wants to go push specifically towards the bantamweight division. He wants to fill all that up. And also, coming in from the Contender Series, Dana White has offered 12 new UFC contracts. So we have 12 new UFC fighters. We have 12 fighters coming into the UFC. And he warns that there will be, people being laid off. There'll be people coming off their contracts soon. And I wouldn't be surprised if we see fighters who have competed in the women's featherweight division all get scrapped from the UFC. Sad, but that's the reality. And so you're listening to the GSMC Women's MMA Podcast, coming back right after the short break here. See you soon.
Check out the show that's built on the MMA. From the UFC to extreme cage fighting, they got the fights covered. Check out the GSMC MMA podcast. Get the latest news on past or upcoming fights. Join us as we talk to and about some of the biggest names in the MMA, past, present, and future. When it's the fight game, there's just one show to check out. GSMCpodcast.com/MMA-podcast. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit GSMCpodcast.com for more info. Are you looking for the very best NFL and college football podcast? Then check out the GSMC Football Podcast. Get the latest football news both on and off the field. From the NFL Draft to trades to the rumor mill to the NFL Combines. They got you covered. That's GSMCpodcast.com/football-podcast. Get updates on college rivalries, game day insights, and much, much more. It's football talk the way you want it. This show eats, sleeps, and breathes football. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit GSMCpodcast.com for more info.
And we are back. So, I'm happy for Jandiroba. She's making her way up in the rankings here. The women's strawweight rankings is very deep. But what else is going on in the world of women's mixed martial arts? Well, I've been talking about Paige VanZant for a couple of weeks now. Even I'm astounded that I'm figuring out ways... I'm astounded that I'm constantly talking about Paige VanZant, considering that Paige VanZant has a record of 5-4. And she always pops up in my feed. And Paige VanZant is very representative of a lot of aspects in the world of mixed martial arts here. So it is coming in from BloodyElbow.com. Paige VanZant's multi-million-dollar bare-knuckle boxing contract explained. Beyond her 4-fight deal with BKFC, it still bothers me that bare-knuckle fighting championship names BKFC. Barbecue Kentucky Fried Chicken. Whatever. It sounds like VanZant is poised to fill commentary and broadcast roles with their promotion as well. When rumors first started circulating that Paige VanZant was in talks with bare knuckle boxing, BKFC, fans were skeptical. While her MMA career had hit some sizable speed bumps, VanZant was still one of MMA's most notable performers. Was she really going to jump ship to a whole different sport? Not to mention, as an athlete who had carved out a celebrity status with her run on Dancing with the Stars, and who has recently been working to pitch herself into other reality shows, a move to bare knuckle fighting seemed like an incredibly risky choice, given the heavy amounts of aesthetic damage the sport can cause. For Paige VanZant, however, it doesn't sound like she's all that concerned about getting dinged up in competition. A cut on your face always heals, VanZant told MMA Fighting. I've been cut open before and people still think I'm pretty, and it hasn't hurt my career yet. For me, it comes down to just being an athlete, and this is a promotion that sparked my passion. Obviously, we did have some huge players in the game. We had really big offers all over the place. Saying right now, WWE offered her a contract, I'm pretty sure. But the offer that excited me, and the promotion that excited me the most was this one. Because it's something that's new, it's exciting. I'm excited to have the passion to fire back. The fire is back in me as an athlete. My family was nervous about anywhere I went, so it's truly whatever I wanted to do, and it wasn't a thought for me to get cut open. I feel like at this point, I'll be paid well enough I can have plastic surgery. I have a plastic surgeon on speed dial, and I can send him a text and said, hey, can you fix me up? Add to that carefree demeanor is an offer from BKFC. BKFC president David Feldman that may have just been too good for 12 Gauge to turn down. She won't just be getting paid for expected 4 fights in the promotion, she'll also be getting more opportunities to grow her personality. It's a multi-million-dollar deal, and we're not even talking the sprinkles and the cherries that go on top of the sundae, VanZant's manager said. Malki Kawa enthused alongside reports that the former UFC talent will also be doing commentary and other broadcasting work for BKFC. Dave made a strong offer. It's a 4-fight deal, so it's nothing crazy. It's a 4-fight deal, and Dave and I sat and planned out these 4 fights on how they should look, when they should be, where they should be, and over the course of the next 16 to 18 months. And I think that if everything goes the way that we expect it to go between the 3 of us, Paige, Dave, and myself, multi-million will turn even bigger than that. 16 to 18 months, 4 fights, within the span of a year and a half, Paige VanZant will be making multi-million dollars. Yeah. Within a year and a half, she'll be making more bank off a year and a half than she did in her years being in the UFC. I think it was like 4 years she was there, 4 or 5 years. Here's the thing. I'll be honest with you. Me and Dave came to a lot of agreements on this contract, and one of them is that she's going to do some bare knuckle boxing. I said absolutely, just as she would have signed for with Bellator, or ONE, or the UFC. It would be an exclusive agreement. The one thing that Dave didn't allow us to do was anything outside of MMA or boxing, which includes pro wrestling or grappling, any of that other stuff. Boom! Pro wrestling! WWE, I called it. Ultimately, it sounds like Paige VanZant is happy to having her chance to grow on. Paige VanZant making all the money for herself. I'm happy. I definitely do not agree with the idea that it's a risk for Paige VanZant to do some bare knuckle fighting. You know why? Because here's the thing. If you watch any of Paige VanZant's fights, yes, she's pulled off some, impressive submission victories, but for the most part, she prefers striking, alright? She's a strike first fighter. The last place Paige VanZant wants to be at is on the ground wrestling with somebody. We saw it in her performance against Amanda Ribas. Bell rings. Both fighters meet in the octagon. Takedown. VanZant stood no chance. Paige VanZant has some, she has a base level of grappling, but nowhere near top of the elites. And there's nowhere she can grapple with. Okay, so Paige VanZant, she's a striker who prefers striking. She can grapple with somebody who doesn't know how to grapple. So I've got boxing buddies. If Paige VanZant were to take them down, she could grapple them. She could probably submit them. But now put Paige VanZant against somebody who also knows how to grapple, who's also exceptionally really well with wrestling and in the clinch. How would Paige VanZant do against something like that? Paige VanZant, she can wrestle somebody who can't wrestle, but can she wrestle somebody who also can wrestle back at the highest level? No. And so from my point of view, it was a smart idea for Paige VanZant to go towards bare knuckle boxing, because now for a training camp will be a lot more simplified, be more easy. Paige VanZant, she doesn't have to worry about leg kicks. She doesn't have to worry about somebody clinching her. She doesn't have to worry about, somebody grappling her. She doesn't have to worry about submissions. She doesn't have to worry about takedowns. She doesn't have to worry about somebody, ground controlling her or getting on her back, going for a rear naked choke. No. She doesn't have to worry about any of that at all in bare knuckle fighting. All she's gonna do is pretty much box. And Paige VanZant can box really, really well for herself. Not only that, she'll also be expanding herself beyond that, doing commentary, doing more promotional work. I still remember Paige VanZant when she was doing an interview where she said she was making an estimated $120,000 per fight. Yeah, she's making out $120,000 per fight. Now, the Chael Sonnens of the world would be like, well, she should be appreciative that she's making $120,000. Like, no. Here it is. Being a person who lives in California, who's lived in Southern California for most of his life, as a person whose education background stems from their time in the San Francisco, Berkeley area, NorCal, Silicon Valley, having friends who work in the Silicon Valley, having friends who work in LA, telling you right now, $120,000 per year. If you don't live in California or you've never surpassed a level in your own career that goes way above and beyond, $120,000 is not a lot of money. I know many people who make $120,000 per year. Now, no, I don't make $120,000 per year. I don't make that much money. I don't. I make a considerably good amount of money right now where I can go live, but that's me. That's what I'm content with. But while there are some fighters, while there are some people who are content with that, not everyone is content making, the bare American average of $56,000 per year. If you live in Northern California, I talk about this in the GSMC MMA podcast, and that, did you know that if you live in the Palo Alto area, Palo Alto, Northern California zone, that's where the Jeff Bezos and the Mark Zuckerbergs are at. If you make $250,000 per year, and you live in the Palo Alto area, you're considered average. You're basic. You're ordinary. You're an ordinary, simple, basic human being if you live in the Palo Alto area and you're making $250,000 per year, $250,000 per year. Now, I highly, highly doubt that there is any MMA fighter out there who lives in the Palo Alto area, who resides in... No. Daniel Cormier, he resides in San Jose, which is just outside the San Francisco area, so it's like its own like little zone, so it doesn't really count as that, like, it's a very different... Northern California is like very split in its zones, really. But I can guarantee you, a person like Paige VanZant, who's supposed to be this huge big time celebrity, if she were to like live in the heart of LA, or in the heart of Silicon Valley, she'd be average. She'd be basic. And while there are a lot of people out there who are fine with being content, not everybody is fine with that. People have like bigger aspirations, they really do. So I am 100% on board for fighters and athletes like Paige VanZant who are able to go and make the most out of the opportunities that they're given. Here's the thing with Dana White Dana White said, mixed martial arts, it's not a career, it's an opportunity. Some agree, some don't agree. Alright then. But all because it's an opportunity, it doesn't mean you should be paid chump change. Now what your definition of chump change is different from my definition of chump change. Alright then? Me being Asian American, I know people me, my family, and friends, we always look up net worths of people every single day. We always look at the net worth of people like The Rock. We always look at the net worth of like Rashid Khan. He's like that huge celebrity from India who makes like $600 million a year or whatever. Yeah. People have different aspirations. Now, I get the idea of like Paige VanZant should, like, people, I'm reading reports that people are like, Paige VanZant should be humbled that she even made six figures in the UFC. And you know what? Life is a grind. Life is all about hustling, alright? Making as much money as you possibly can. And Paige VanZant is doing that. And not only on top of that, she's making multi-millions, apparently, multi-millions in the span of a year and a half, just primarily working for Bellator. For bare knuckle boxing. And it's also being reported by Corey Anderson, who just recently left. He was a title contender for the UFC. Left the UFC, Corey Anderson did. Went to Bellator, and he says he's going to be making a lot more money in Bellator. He'll have his own sponsors. He gets to go promote a brand. He gets to put himself out there more. He gets more opportunities. And he said himself that it's more important for me to make money than it is to go get those 3 letters, UFC, right before a championship. He cares more about those figures popping into his bank account more so than those 3 letters when saying Corey Anderson, UFC fighter. It happens. That's how it is. I'm happy about this. I am all for this movement of fighters right now, because it's very outdated right now. It's ridiculous that NBA players, NFL athletes, NHL athletes are all for supporting each other and for pushing for max money. In the UFC, can you imagine Colby Covington or Chael Sonnen or Ben Askren or Kamaru Usman being like, yeah, Jorge Masvidal, you make your money, congratulations. You never want to see that. Ever. You see all these athletes just pick on each other via Twitter, Instagram, social media, and like whatever about it, but I have never seen, ever, one fighter support another fighter for their future endeavors, or for contract negotiations, or supporting another fighter in their contractual negotiations. In the NBA, a player was offered $70 million for a 3-year contract. $70 million over 3 years. $70 million. There's no MMA athlete in the world who can come close to getting a contract like that. Not even close. If an MMA promoter were to offer him a contract that's like, hey man, you should be humble, you should be appreciative of making $150,000 per fight. Like, the man who was offered $70 million, he fired his manager. He fired his manager, his agent, because he felt embarrassed that he was making such little money. $70 million. I wish there is a time in the I wish in the future that moment will come where somebody offers, a fighter a contract and they'll be like, no, that's chump change. And I want that to happen to the biggest athletes out there. I want the Khabibs. I want the Conor McGregors. I want the John Jones to be like, you know what? Nah. Your money's chump change. No, shut up. That's chump change. All because you think it's chump change doesn't mean I believe it's chump. I believe it's not chump change. All right, I'm out of here. I am all for player-athlete movement. We should be, no matter what your viewpoint is on Paige VanZant, in that she's just a pretty face in mixed martial arts, and she's just taking advantage of her attractive looks. We should always be supportive of fighters being able to make as much money as they can in an organization that doesn't pay their athletes all that well. That's what I believe. So once again, you're listening to the GSMC Women's MMA Podcast. Coming back right after the short break here. See you soon.
Tired of searching the vast jungle of podcasts? Now listen close and hear this out. There's a podcast network that covers just about everything that you've been searching. Hey! The Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network is here. Nothing less than a podcast bliss with endless hours of podcast coverage. From news, sports, music, fashion, cooking, entertainment, fantasy, football, and so much more. So stop lurking around and go straight out to the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. Guaranteed to fill that podcast itch. Whatever it may be. Visit us at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Follow us on Facebook and Twitter, and download us on iTunes, SoundCloud, and Google Play. This is your ultimate stop for everything sports. The Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast. Should I say more? From the NFL, MLB, the NBA, to MMA, it's all in here. The Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast. Listen now.
And we are back. So once again, I'll be talking about the rescheduling and scheduling of women's MMA fights coming up. So first off here, we got a fight coming up for August 21, Bellator 244, co-main event being Julia Budd against Jess Meal. And the day right after that, we have August 22, UFC Fight Night, with Michelle Waterson versus Angela Hill, Maria Agapova versus Shayna Dobson, and Mizuki Inoue against Amanda Lemos. I'm incredibly excited for Michelle Waterson and Angela Hill. In my opinion, I think that those are two fighters who I believe deserve more credit than they really should. And Maria Agapova, to me, is a fighter that everyone should look out for being the next big superstar. Here's the thing. I believe Agapova is in the same level as Sean O'Malley in terms of potential. I'm that high on Agapova, and that she has all the physicals and the natural charisma, and she's only 21 years old. She has everything it takes for her to, really go far into the fight division. Especially right now, considering the fight division is pretty much, it's not all that healthy. It really isn't. Valentina's out, and every time they try to push another female fighter in the fight division, they always end up being stopped by, like Katlyn Chookagian. So that division right now isn't all that healthy. Julia Budd versus Jessie Meal. Julia Budd is, she's right now, like, in the middle of, like, in Canada, talking about, race issues going on right now. Really good for Julia Budd. I'm really happy for her that she's really passionate about, pushing for anti-racism in the Canada scene right now, because Canada, well, weird random factor, Canada is far back compared to America in terms of its interracial relationships. And the ratio of interracial relationships that are happening in Canada is far less. I think it's like 1% something, like 1 point something percent as it pertains towards like African American and any other ethnic group out there. But there's like a huge push for like Asians and white people. And it's very similar to America in the sense that like Asians and white people are the most predominant interracial relationship out there. But even though there are a lot more Asians that live, are there a lot more Asians that live in Canada? I know Canada, I think in the grand scheme of things, has a lot of Asian populations there, a huge Asian representation there. It is in America, there is a small representation of Asians in the South and in the East Coast, because most Asians, especially Filipinos, because I'm Filipino, mostly reside in the San Francisco area, or in the Irvine zone in Southern California. You know the joke saying like, if you threw like a banana up in the air, it would hit an Asian person in UCI? Yeah, that would probably happen. No matter where you look, you'll mostly see a lot of Asian people in UCI. That's what I'm gonna go for that. But, Canada, it's a very, very weird spot in that people herald it as this place for there's little racism going on, which is kinda true, but in the same sense, there's still some interracism happening in that country. So Julia Budd, she's pushing forward. Her and her husband are advocating, they're making their voices out there, be vocal, and they're helping out communities. So good for them. Really good. Once again, Julia Budd's fight, it will be against Jessie Meal coming up August 21st, Bellator 244. Which is going to be taking place on a Friday, while the August 22nd UFC Fight Night show is going to be taking place on, the day after, which would be August 22 on a Saturday. Also, a fight that has been changed multiple times. Alexa Grasso, Jeon Kim, these two were supposed to fight this month. They were also meant to fight 2 months ago. It's just, Alexa Grasso, Jeon Kim, their fight has been mixed and matched so many times right now that I've literally lost count. That every time I go through this podcast, I'm talking about, hey, when is Alexa Grasso and Jeon Kim going to fight each other? When is that going to happen? So, Jeon Kim, though, Jeon Kim has so much potential to make her way up into the rankings. The problem with Jeon Kim, though, is I think she's gone through 2 fights at cash weights. It's either 2 or 3, but she struggles mightily as it pertains to cutting weight and making the actual weight cut going down. So if Jeon Kim and Alexa Grasso were to fight and the weight cut goes all well and stuff, I'm happy. That's what I'm mostly aiming for here. I'm worried about Jeon Kim's weight cut more than anything else. And also happening in the August 29 UFC Fight Night event, we have Hannah, my girl Cyphers against Mallory Martin. Congratulations for Hannah Cyphers. Still pushing it. He's trying to push it. So, I can't, even though Hannah Cyphers, I don't believe she's gonna go far in the UFC, but she's making a whole lot of money. And I always like it when the fighters are able to make the most of what they can in their career and make a lot of money. And so I did say Michelle Waterson versus Angela Hill, but sadly that fight just got rescheduled. This literally just popping in right now. That Michelle Waterson and Angela Hill, they're rescheduled for September 12th instead. And those two, their fight is going to be delayed, but you can't really change those stuff. COVID being a really huge issue. You can't predict the stuff. You just can't. Also, another fun fight. September 5 will be UFC Fight Night. Ciara Eubanks against Macy Chiasson. So let's get into more announcements over here. We have Ariana Lipski versus Antonina Shevchenko targeted at UFC 255 in November. An exciting fight matchup is in the works for UFC 255 on November 21. Ariana, the Violence Queen Lipski, is expected to face against Antonina Shevchenko, who is 8-2 in her MMA career. I thought it would be better. I think she came into the UFC undefeated, and then she dropped 2 of her fights. Yikes. Lipski is coming off a bonus winning knee bar submission over Luana Carolina in July. Really impressive. Honestly, I've never heard a scream that loud. Because Lipski, she was able to bend her opponent's leg past her head And it was so loud that I think the people who were doing commentary was like, oh my gosh, yikes. After dropping her first 2 UFC appearances, the former KSW flyweight champion is riding a 2-fight win streak. Meanwhile, Antonina Shevchenko will be sharing the card with her younger sister. Reigning flyweight champion Valentina Shevchenko is currently 2-2 in the UFC, coming off a unanimous decision loss to Caitlin Chookagian in May. Not a good showing there. Just really not. Antonina came into the UFC undefeated, and her striking is on point, very great. It's really awesome, but she's again, man, Antonina, she's, thing about Antonina is I like Antonina. Her striking is so good. She has all the qualities for her, she has all the characteristics and the fighting style, and also the media push, her being the sister of Valentina, she can go on and do great things in the UFC. But fighting against Lipski is the bad choice for Antonina. I guess she has to fight her, right? Especially she has to go fight her for an actual UFC pay-per-view event. Who am I predicting this fight here? For as good as a striker Antonina is, she really does need to work on her grappling. Because from what I look at this fight right now, coming off Lipski submission victory, bell rings, Antonina is going to use her reach advantage. Lipski says, no, you know what? Because North Carolina had a significant size and reach advantage over Lipski. Like, Luana Carolina was fighting the way how she should be fighting, and the fact that she's using her arm length and her reach and her kickboxing to go and stop Lipski from pressuring her. But that didn't stop Lipski at all. When you look at the physicals of Luana Carolina and Antonina Shevchenko, they're very similar. Very, very similar. So what stops, so if Lipski, she sees Antonina and is like, okay then, this is very similar to my fight with Luana Carolina. Long, lengthy, reachy, kickboxing fighter. I'm gonna go dive in there. Antonina Shevchenko has shown that she pretty much panics, and she has her back on the wall as it pertains to fighting somebody who can grapple on the ground, because her grappling isn't all that impressive. And so, Antonina Lipski is my prediction here. She is gonna go and defeat Antonina Shevchenko after either 3 rounds of action of grappling or by submission. But then again, I could be completely wrong here. Antonina Shevchenko might have, developed better ground skills, because that's the weakest part of her game. And she might defend against a takedown, and, who knows? Maybe she'll be a better grappler in her next upcoming fight against Lipski here. Another fight being announced here is between Sarah Moraz and Vanessa Mello. An important bantamweight bout has been added to the upcoming UFC card in November, as Vanessa Mello, who is 10-8, is expected to face against Sarah Cheesecake Moraz, who is 6-6. Mello is 0-3 in her 3 octagon appearances. She most recently fought at UFC 251 in July, dropping a decision to Carol Rosa. Prior to entering the UFC in 2019, she was on a 5-fight winning streak. Moraz is 1-4 in her last 5 fights. She last competed in May, dropping a decision to Ciara Eubanks. She entered the UFC 2013 after competing on season 18 of Ultimate Fighter. Both these fighters must win. Both of them must win their upcoming fights, or else they are going to be cut. And is also being reported in by Dana White himself. So Dana White, he offered 12 new contracts for fighters coming in from the Contender Series right now, and he says there will definitely be some cuts. There will definitely be some cuts coming over to the UFC. A lot of fighters are going to be dropped. 12 new fighters, and you know what? That number is going to be increasing because the Ultimate Fighter is coming back. Dana White's still pushing for the Contender Series. He's gonna add in more fighters coming in. Man, you have to fight for your career at this point, honestly, because with so many new fighters coming in, dang. So right now, I'm currently looking at the UFC bantamweight rankings now, because that fight is going to be in the bantamweight rankings. We have Holly Holmberg and Arnel Dana coming up on October 3. Jermaine Raname against Julian Pena coming up October 3. I'll love to see Holly Holmberg, Jermaine Raname. I think both of them are going to come into their respective fights on the October 3 show as the favorites. Whoever wins that fight is going to go and fight Nunes again, potentially. I still believe GDR should be at the forefront at fighting against Van Nunes. And then we have Julian Pena. Yeah, Julian Pena against Jermaine Raname. Caitlin Vieira against Monroe. Caitlin Vieira against Monroe. Ciara Eubanks against Missy Chiasa. Nico Montano. Nico Montano has to be one of those fighters in that everyone in the MMA spectrum, everyone knows Nico Montano, but for the worst reason, and that is for being pretty much a paper champion. That's Nico Montano. Hopefully she can bounce back. She'll fight against Julian Avila. And, I want Nico Montano to bounce back. I want her and GDR to bounce back. Considering that both of them are inaugural champions. GDR was an inaugural champion for the featherweight division. And Nico Montano was the inaugural champion of the flyweight division. So yeah. No, was it flyweight or... No, because Nico Montano was the inaugural champion for a weight class. I forgot about that. But, dang, we got two inaugural champions out there. Both of them, one of them doing really well for himself, the other one trying to bounce herself back up. But we got two former champions trying to climb their way back up into being champions yet again. So I'm excited for those two fighters. Hopefully Nico and GDR, I'm pulling for both of them to go win their respective fights. And so it is being reported that Felice Spencer is aiming for an early 2021 return and wants Nunes Anderson next. So Felice Spencer is in a rush to get back in the octagon following her United Decision loss to featherweight champion Amanda Nunes back at UFC 250 back in June. I'm going to take my time, Spencer told MMA News. I also want to see what's going on with the division. I haven't seen any new fight bookings or anything, so I'm just going to take it easy. Technically, my medical suspension is until the middle of December, so I might ride that out rather than trying to get clear too early. I had a few other minor injuries that are kind of nagging. Now that since the fight not right now fighting doesn't feel good. So yeah, probably no sooner than December. I could even see myself coming back in January. That's my timeline. I would be curious to see Amanda Nunes versus Megan Anderson, honestly. I know I got the title shot first, but I always kind of curious, like styles make fights, and I think it's a really interesting style matchup. Even though I feel like I would have been able to defeat Amanda Nunes with different decisions that were made in the fight, and I have a win over Megan Anderson, I still feel like every fight is a fresh fight, and anything can happen anytime you fight somebody. I hope they continue to push the featherweight division. Megan can either... Wow, okay. So, Spencer is supportive of Megan Anderson fighting against Amanda Nunes. Megan Anderson was going to fight against Nunes if Spencer was not available, or if Spencer were to defeat... after Spencer defeated Megan Anderson. It'd be a fun matchup. I don't mind it. I wouldn't mind seeing Megan Anderson versus Amanda Nunes. It is right now, the featherweight rankings are so difficult to look into because A, there's no official featherweight rankings right now. We just have a plethora of women's featherweight fighters out there who could be fighting against Amanda Nunes, but right now, Megan Anderson, I say toss her into the bantamweight division. Yeah. Toss Megan Anderson in the bantamweight division, see how well she does, then from then on you can then go push the narrative of Megan Anderson deserving to fight against Amanda Nunes. That's how I see it right now. I am not positive for the future of the women's featherweight division. I think Megan Anderson would be perfect for the women's bantamweight division, and according to Dana White, he wants to push that division right now. And so once again, you're listening to the GSMC Women's MMA Podcast, coming back right after the short break here. See you soon.
Are you looking for help for your fantasy football team? Check out the GSMC Fantasy Football Podcast. Get today's best advice on who to start, who to sit, even who you should draft. From sleeper picks to red hot lineups, they got it all covered for you. That's gsmcpodcast.com/fantasy-football-podcast. We'll cover traditional leagues, dynasty, PPR, even IDP leagues. When you need fantasy help, there's just one show to hit up. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit gsmcpodcast.com for more info.
And we are back. So once again, you're listening to the GSMC Women's MMA Podcast. I am your host, Arnel De Leon. And in the end of these episodes here, I like to talk about, hot takes. What are your hot takes of mixed martial arts? And I found one hot take, and I want to see if it applies to women's divisions here. And one hot take was, Khabib exposed the sorry state of MMA grappling today like Anderson Silva exposed the sorry state of MMA striking back in the day. When Sprawl and Brawl went out of style, but Scoop or Hop to the cage became way too popular, Khabib will most likely lose when guys let go of that as their default grappling defense when they go back to playing guard. So, grappling in mixed martial arts right now, it's very evident that if you are a grappler, you will maintain your place on top of a division. We see that with Daniel Cormier, we see that with Kamaru Usman, we see that with Georges St. Pierre. And I'm looking at this right now, actually. I'm looking at the women's rankings right now, the divisions. And how many grapplers are on the very top of the women's pound for pound rankings here? Let me look through each women's divisions here. So, the top 5 fighters of the women's strawweight division. We have Weili Zhang, Rose Namajunas, Jessica Andrade, Joanna Jędrzejczyk, Tatiana Suarez. Anyone see the problem here? It's very strike heavy, ain't it? Now, all these women can grapple. They can grapple. But they're very strike heavy. And I talked about this last time in that I always prefer diversity over just sheer excitement at times. And that I like there to be way more diversified fighting styles among the top 5. Because if you look at the top 5 of the women's strawweight ranking now, we have the major 4. Weili Zhang, Rose Namajunas, Joanna Jędrzejczyk, Jessica Andrade. Those are the major 4 fighters of the women's strawweight divisions. And for the most part, they all fight very similarly, but they differentiate just a slight little bit in their form, in their striking. But all 4 of these are very, significantly different. Joanna Jędrzejczyk is the best out-of-the-pocket boxer out of all these 4. Rose Namajunas has the best footwork. Jessica Andrade arguably has the most strength and is the best in dirty boxing. Weili Zhang is a combination of Joanna and Rose Namajunas. So, these 4 women all fight very similarly, but none of them are grapplers. And I'm thinking, if a grappler were to pop up into the women's strawweight division, how good would they be? And the grappler I thought about immediately was Carla Esparza. Carla Esparza, when she fought against Moreno Rodriguez, she fought very sloppy. She fought not with all that much intelligence, in my viewpoints. And the reason why that is because Carla Esparza, in her post-fight interview, she said it best. I had to go make this fight exciting. I had to go finish up my opponent because the only way I can go and move up in the rankings is if I finish my opponent in an exciting way. And the truth is, not that many people are interested in grappling. And because there is less of a push for grapplers in mixed martial arts, this leads to fighters having to fight their way in the long haul in order to get themselves up in the rankings here. Charles Oliveira, a proper decade veteran in the UFC, has been slowly trying to buy his way into the lightweight rankings here, and only now he's doing so. Tyron Woodley, no one was caring about him until he started knocking people out. Kamaru Usman, great grappler. Boring fighter, but he's a great grappler. John Jones, great grappler. Now let's go look at the women's fight rankings here. And then although we have Israel Adesanya, who is mostly a striker first, Paulo Costa, striker first, we had guys like Kelvin Gastelum who were moving their way up in the rankings. So now let's look at the women's fight rankings here. Katlyn Chookagian, Valentina Shevchenko, Cynthia Calvillo, Jennifer Maia, Lauren Murphy. So when I look at, Katlyn Chookagian is probably the second best grappler here next to behind Jennifer Maia. And when you look at, and even then, when you look at the rest of the card here, Roxana Daffrey, Joanne Calderwood, Jessica Ai. And I'm looking at this right now. There has been among the top 8 fighters who are currently in the women's flyweight division. There have been only 8, 24. There have been 3 submission victories. 3 submission victories of the past 24 fights among the top 8 of the women's flyweight rankings here. Which means there's not all much grappling happening. We have Jennifer Maia getting a submission victory, Joanne Calderwood getting a submission victory here. Yeah, but that's good here and there. But for the most part, it's very striker heavy. Very, very striker heavy. And that's why there's a lot of eyes going towards Cynthia Calvillo right now, who is going to be fighting against Lauren Murphy. Because Cynthia Calvillo, fights way smaller than she actually is. So she's competing on flyweight, but she looks like she'd be a natural women's strawweight. And I think if Cynthia Calvillo were to compete in a strawweight division, she would do as good, if not better. I believe that well. Cynthia Calvillo, who wasn't even ranked in the top 10 up until this year. Great performance against Jessica Ai. Cynthia Calvillo and Killer Chukagian, they're matched up very equally, in my opinion. I think they're very similar in terms of styles here. Chukagian, she out-wrestled Anthony Shevchenko because Anthony Shevchenko just didn't really have them much in terms of, grappling. I believe of all the women who can break the mold and be the grappling heavy champion in the women's divisions would have to be Cynthia Calvillo. I think Cynthia Calvillo can definitely grapple with Valentina Shevchenko. My only problem with that, though, is Valentina, her striking, her reach can be such an advantage for her, and she's so good defending herself from the takedown that it would be difficult for Cynthia to do so. But it seems like there's more of an emphasis on defensive wrestling than it is being proactive and being aggressive as a wrestler and winning your fights. That's how I say it now. Now let's go to the women's bantamweight rankings here, which is very interesting. Because Amanda Nunes, right now, she's been heavily focused on the grappling. And it happened ever since her battle with Jermaine Durandame. There's been no fighter who went toe-to-toe during Amanda Nunes' time as champion than GDR. No other woman out there. So, GDR was able to humble Amanda Nunes with her striking, which led to Nunes turning the fight into a wrestling match. And then she then carries that over towards her fight against Felicia Spencer. So Nunes, she's kind of slowly transitioning her way from the knockout artist in the first round to, the passive, very safe fighter who knows how to pick her shots, very strong, really good fighter all around, a true MMA athlete. I'm also looking down here. Probably the best grappler here, legitimately, I think who can out-grapple Amanda Nunes would have to be Aspen Ladd. Yeah. I'm looking among the top 8 fighters right now in the women's bantamweight rankings here. Amanda Nunes, for as good of a grappler as she is, she's got a black belt in jiu-jitsu. Aspen Ladd is a little bit better than Nunes here. But Nunes' striking is so difficult to deal with. And she's so good in every facet of the striking exchange, whether it be outside, middle, or inside the pocket. I can see Aspen Ladd being able to successfully and safely take down Amanda Nunes. So right now, all the wrestlers right now, when I look at the flyweights, strawweights, bantamweights, these grapplers are poor in the stand-up here, and I would like it if there would be a women's fighter out there who is, the closest one so far has to be Carla Esparza, in that she is decent enough in the striking to kind of handle herself, but her wrestling is really, really good here. But yeah, I'm looking at the rankings here. There doesn't seem to be that much depth in terms of wrestlers, in terms of grapplers. And another one, is Conor McGregor overrated or underrated? It really does depend. I really can't argue that, actually. I just can't. Ooh. Joanna defeated Weili Zhang and should have won the Rose rematch. No. Rose Namajunas definitely defeated Joanna Jędrzejczyk in the rematch. Definitely. I don't know what type of fight you're watching, but Rose definitely, in my book, defeated Joanna Jędrzejczyk in their second fight. Now, Joanna versus Weili Zhang, that is completely up in the air. Completely up in the air. You could make the argument that Weili Zhang won the fight. You could make the argument, because the argument for Joanna Jędrzejczyk as to why she won her fight against Weili Zhang would be, well, statistically, if you look at the numbers, she outstruck Weili Zhang in every single round. And you're like, yeah, but Weili Zhang obviously threw out the harder punches than Joanna, and Joanna looks like she was the one who was obviously flustered from the shots. And it's hard to bring up fight stats all the time. It's very different. Because I always bring up Dominic Cruz and Cody Garbrandt in their fight, because Dominic Cruz technically fought better than Cody Garbrandt at a per round basis. But we all know who actually won that fight. It was Cody Garbrandt, alright? Cody Garbrandt was a better fighter. The stats don't say it though, but obviously off the eye test, he was smoking Dominic Cruz in the striking. And for Weili Zhang versus Joanna Jacek, Weili Zhang just slightly did better than Joanna in the striking in terms of like impact, because Joanna can go in for a flurry of shots into Weili Zhang, good, but Weili Zhang will still press forward, hit Joanna with one shot, and then Joanna's head was going to tilt back, and that just doesn't look good. It just doesn't. And as I am speaking, we got a call out. Apparently Clarissa Shields calls out Amanda Nunes, saying she is not the GOAT. So Clarissa Shields believes that Amanda Nunes is encroaching on her turf, the 3-division title holder, and called herself boxing's GOAT, or the greatest women's fighter of all time. But she knows that in some circles, the UFC's Nunes, one of the most dominant and popular figures in MMA, is regarded as a top female fighter in the world. Clarissa Shields says that she is the best, she is the greatest women's fighter of all time. Clarissa Shields, she has 3 belts right now in women's boxing. And she says, I hate people that say Amanda Nunes fights better than me. No, you do MMA better than me, for sure, because that's what you do. But if we take away her kicking and her elbows, and we're just gonna go left and right with hands, I would win. Well, yeah! Okay, yeah. So Clarissa Shields goes forward saying, MMA fighters make it seem like she could come over and beat me, and it's like they gotta be smoking some kind of dope or something, and that's like if I could go over to MMA without training and beat her. It's like I gotta train, I gotta get some kind of experience, I gotta get some fights at MMA, you can't just go, okay. Alright, so let me right now, Amanda Nunes, for as good of a boxer as she is, very, very different from boxing. Very, very, I don't think Amanda Nunes would fare all that well if she were to become a full-time boxer. I think she would make the transition pretty well for herself. I think she could go nab in some wins. I think if she were to fight Clarissa Shields in a boxing match, Nunes would definitely lose. But I still say the best woman's fighter in the world would have to be Nunes right now. Amanda Nunes. Why? Because fighting goes beyond just punching. That's a fact. If you're saying, who's the best boxer? Clarissa Shields. Who's the best fighter? Amanda Nunes. Like, you can't just disregard MMA fighting for not being fighting. Like, I don't know. I have no clue what Clarissa Shields is on. I'm happy for her being a triple belt champion while Nunes is a double belt champion. So there's that one thing she has like bragging rights over Nunes there. But man, it's ridiculous. Amanda Nunes, she is unanimously, at least in my book, the best women's fighter in the world, off the basis that mixed martial arts is more diversified fighting than boxing. That's really it though. Now, I would love to see Amanda Nunes, go over and fight against, the women's champions of ONE and at Bellator. I like to see that more. I like to see more avenues for, Amanda Nunes to go compete in. I think that will truly solidify herself as, an all-time great, as the greatest women's fighter of all time. That'd be awesome, but right now, I'm not sure about the future of Amanda Nunes. I'm not sure. Amanda Nunes, there's rumors going out there that she might be retiring, she may not be retiring. Who knows? We got fighters calling her out, though. We got a lot of potential matchups out there. GDR, Holly Holm, Megan Anderson. The future right now for Amanda Nunes seems really bleak right now. Dana White says that if she wants to retire, then she can definitely retire. It'd be fine. So, the future of Amanda Nunes, unsure. The future of the women's featherweight division, unsure. Bantamweight, also unsure. So, things are getting kind of muddy right now in those two women's divisions. But I can only expect the very best out of Amanda Nunes if she were to compete yet again. And that brings us to a close for today's podcast. You have been a great audience. All I gotta say is thank you. Thank you for listening to the GSMC Women's MMA Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. I'd like to ask, please remember to subscribe to the show and write a nice review. That really helps us. Also, you can please follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Thank you, and have a good night.
You've been listening to the Golden State Media Concepts Women's Mixed Martial Arts Podcast, part of the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. You can find this show and others like it at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Download our podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, and Google Play. Just type in GSMC to find all the shows from the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network, from movies to music, from sports to entertainment, and even weird news. You can also follow us on Twitter and on Facebook. Thank you, and we hope you have enjoyed today's program.